for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cup's won. Go Argos, go, go, go. Until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cup's won. Go Argos, go Toronto, go. Go Argos, go, go, go.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 16. Actually, our season final of the Argo Bounce Podcast show with yours truly, Chris Pomay and Nick Small. And Nick, hard to believe our 2025 season is coming to a wrap here on this Saturday, November 1st, 2025. A few weeks shorter than last year when the Argos went to the Grey Cup and won it. And kind of a disappointing season. And I'm looking forward to the off season and already the 2026 season, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. A little bit disappointing given the recent success we've had. But when you've won 2 Grey Cups and tied the CFL record 16-2 regular season, it's probably maybe we were a little bit due for a down year. So we just focus on rebuilding, work towards next year. And it's going to be a challenge, too, knowing that we're going to probably miss our first 3 regular season home games due to the FIFA World Cup, the scheduling, and all that. But we're ready to lock and load back into Guelph next spring come the month of May.
And I'm going to bring on our special guest. He is the manager of media communications and the longtime radio play-by-play voice of the Toronto Argonauts on TSN 1050, Mr. Mike Hogan, who is also a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles as well and a friend of ours as well. So we're going to bring on Mike Hogan. Good evening, Mike. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you, boys?
Doing good. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Congratulations on Laurier winning today, and I guess now next week is going to be Queens and Laurier in the AIDS Cup.
Yeah, the team I grew up watching, and then watching Gales games is where I developed my love of football, and they are into Laurier to play the team that I did play-by-play for 4 years. So it's a no-win, no-lose situation.
Yeah,
Nick?
As a Laurier Golden Hawk myself, I was pretty excited with how that game went today on the Laurier side. Was happy enough to be out there in Waterloo with my dad. Yeah, Laurier got off to a pretty big 27-0 lead in the first half. And interesting enough, Tristan Aboud, who started the game, for whatever reason, injury or whatnot, sat most of the second half. Marshall McRae came in, put up 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, got within reach. But unfortunately, Laurier was able to hold off to a 37-30 victory. One person I do want to give a shout out to for this game was Ryan Hughes, wide receiver number 3 for Laurier. Made 2 outstanding deep catches, 2 touchdowns. One of those receptions was for 53 yards. He had 161 yards receiving on the day. So I want to give a big shout out to him and a phenomenal job for the Laurier Golden Hawks, who now get to face Queens hosting the AIDS Cup next week.
Yeah, he's part of that receiving core and that offense. I mean, it's not just the offense. Defensively, I went to the game between Queens and Laurier in Kingston week 2, I think it was. And, man, Laurier's fast everywhere. I don't know how a team is going to compete with that speed. They're just different. And, I'm sure the coach Snyder and McManus and all the guys down at Kingston have had ample time to look at video to try and figure out how to slow down Laurier's offense. But obviously, what Guelph did in the second half worked because they kept it close and were able to with the quarterback change, get it close. It's a gutsy call for Coach Soria as well. Take it a veteran to bring in a guy who hasn't had a ton of reps. So kudos for him being not a new coach, but a new head coach, relatively speaking. That's not an easy decision to make in a playoff game.
Yeah, I give Guelph a lot of credit as well because they went for third down conversions and not like 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2. They went for some 3rd and 8s and worse numerous times in the game. So for them to be able to convert that was huge. And want to give some credit to Laurier as well. Like at the start of the year, maybe some questions with Cal Wither coming in to replace Taylor Alguerzma, big shoes to fill. But then as we see, Wither managed to break the Laurier touchdown pass record held since I think 1993 with 26 touchdowns, if I recall the stat correctly. So pretty big accomplishment for him as well, especially with those big shoes to fill from Alguerzma.
Was that Bill Kubas or was that Kevin McDonald? I can't remember who that would have been in 93 because Kubas won in 91. Kevin McDonald is now the president of Football Canada. And was my partner in the booth for a couple of years with the Golden Hawks. K-Mac, he has a youth sports record for most passing attempts in a game. So maybe that's in there somewhere. That might be his record.
As a 97 baby, I wouldn't know without the chart, unfortunately.
I thought you may have heard.
Hey, Mike, how do you see this Yates Cup? I think it's the 117th Yates Cup. How do you quickly see how this game going between Queens and Laurier before we get to the Argos?
Yeah, Queens has to keep it close. They kind of let it get away from them early. In the game in Kingston, there were 2 early returns, big returns that were called back by penalty. So that game could have been even a little more one-sided than it was. But boy, they've got to figure out. I don't know if it's just playing a deeper zone. I don't know what they're going to do, but I'll give them credit to figure out, since they've already seen them once, how to maybe slow down that Laurier offense. But it ain't going to be easy.
Hey, Mike, quickly before we get to the Argos, the CFL changes are going to take place in 26-27. Do you feel that's going to affect the OUA, or do you feel they're going to just keep the same status as it is?
That's the OUA's call.
Okay.
The CFL is going to do what it's going to do. U Sports is going to do what it's going to do. It would be a fairly expensive proposition, I would think. But as far as training camp and playing a preseason game in Guelph in 2 years' time, they're going to have to move those goalposts. So same thing in Montreal, where they share a field with McGill. Any shared facility, Calgary, they're going to have to figure out what to do in situations like that.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for a lot of universities, I think, to make that decision. Take Laurier as a good example. They just spent over $1 million working on renovations. They probably put $100,000 into the new field. Not only now they got to move the goalposts net 5 yards back, even with the other field changes. Plus, I was talking to a couple of people. I'm more than just a football fan. I have some insider knowledge on this. That some things, like they put a bubble over it during the winter time so that they can use it for other facilities. All that kind of stuff gets affected now. And it's a tall task for the CFL if you're going to say, hey, you need to make these changes, but we're not going to give you money to do it. So it's a big gray area, as far as I can see, on how they're going to get it done. And more importantly, find the funding, the means to do it.
That's a decision for people with much higher eyebrows than mine.
Yeah. And
Mike, quick thoughts on today's games. Obviously, Montreal and Winnipeg and BC Calgary. Last, it was 13-7 BC at halftime.
Yeah, as we do this, it's just into the third quarter. The Montreal game, I thought was going to be fairly one-sided. Great on Winnipeg for coming back, actually taking the lead at one point when they started to use turnovers to their advantage. I thought that was a game that kind of went the way it was supposed to at the end, but I just thought Montreal would be too much for them at home, and likewise BC over Calgary. I thought it would be a lower scoring game because Calgary's defense is so good, but that's the way it's gone so far. Kind of the way that I expected it to go, although there's still 30 minutes or more left in the Western game.
Yeah, is this the end of the Bombers' 5-year Grey Cup run, or do you feel they'll reload and regroup for 2026?
Well, it's the end of the run technically because they won't be in the Grey Cup this year. But going forward, I don't know. Zach Claris, I'm sure, is going to make a decision at the end of the year whether or not he's going to be back. There are some players who are getting long on the tooth there. We've mentioned that on our broadcast often. Guys like Pat Neufeld, Willie Jefferson, for a guy at his position specifically, is getting up there a little bit. So they've got some guys who are on the wrong side of 30 that are going to have to make some decisions, or they're going to have to make some decisions on. Stanley Bryant's another guy, great player, but Father Time is undefeated.
I mean, to maybe even jump ahead, you could even post that same question towards the Argos with the year they've had. We've been really successful in the Ryan Dinwiddie era. I think we've made the East Finals every year except this past year. 2 Grey Cups, 16-2 record, tying the all-time CFL record. We're in kind of a very similar scenario with a young lineup. We've got to now reload and go for it coming ahead into this year in 2026.
Yeah, the reloading is similar between the Argos and the Bombers. So one thing the Argos have going for them that the Bombers don't right now is almost all of the, if not all of the potential free agents that the Argos would love to have back are still in their prime. They don't have that 36-year-old quarterback issue, or however old Zach is right now. So there are a couple of examples, obviously, of guys on the other side of 30, but for the most part, it's a younger team in Toronto than it is in Winnipeg.
Hey, Mike, I know you can't really go into specifics on free agency, but how is the Argos cap situation going into the offseason? Because that can play a big factor too.
It depends on the guys. I mean, there are guys right now who are pending free agents that have some pretty big numbers next to the name. I guess Wynton McManus would be the biggest example of that. But they've got some big ticket guys back heading forward, guys like Judge and Nicastro and Hunter and Kelly and all of those guys under contract. Arbuckle's under contract for next year. So there are a couple of big tickets, obviously, but I think that it's obviously a workable number the way that they have things worked out. So they're not. I don't think there's a team in cap hell going into free agency.
Yeah, to look at my perspective on it, it looks like a lot of the free agents, very similar to last season, a lot of it is on the defensive side of the ball. The fact that they've got Arbuckle and Chad Kelly both under contract for next year is huge, because that kind of takes that question out of the way. Is Arbuckle potentially going to sign for starter money somewhere else? That's not happening because we know he's back in Toronto next year. But I look at the pending free agents on the D line. You've got Thadrick Hansen, Jamin Pele, Lanier, DeMarcus Christmas, who didn't play much this year because of his injury, Brian Cox. And then on the linebacker side, you've got Cassard, D'Arcangelo, Harelamana, McManus, Varga. So you got a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball that you could toy with or see if you've got cap space there or somewhere else where you want to put that money in. It's kind of the fun speculation, armchair GM part that guys like me get to mess around with at this point of the off season.
I'm sure they'll get some of the guys done before free agency. There's no question about that. I know they're close to a handful of guys right now. I don't think any of them would be considered big names, but those negotiations are underway right now, certainly. And I'm sure they're talking to everybody at this stage. It's just, take a couple of weeks to see what happened in 2025 and do the self-evaluation, and then start looking to 2026 moving forward and figuring out what the hell you have. And, we'll see as the weeks progress which guys they decide to move back into the fold. I know a lot of the big names do want to be back. It's just a question of finding the right number.
Not to mention real briefly, anybody who's on the practice roster, if I understand correctly, is automatically a free agent once the Grey Cup game's over.
Yep.
Hey, Mike, I know the team finished 5-13, and nobody thought they were going to be 5-13. But to me, this team was better than their record indicated, and just a couple of plays here and there, and this team could have been 9-9 and been into a playoff spot, possibly.
Top of my head, what were they, 2-9 in games decided in the last 3 minutes? It was something like that, where if you had finished a game above 500, you'd probably be playing today. That's the way it goes. It was just one of those years where you couldn't buy a break when you needed one, and maybe it was just the football gods making up for the great 4-year run and all of the football karma where everything seemed to go right for the Argos for 4 years seemed to go against them this year. So it's a better team than the record indicates. You're right. Yeah. I don't think there's any question about that. Even with Chad Kelly out of the lineup for the season, I still thought of this as a playoff team, and it just didn't work out. There's a myriad of reasons, but I think the major reason was the Argos just couldn't win the close games this year, something they were very good at. And they've also got to increase their record and get a few more dubs at home, because that's been in the Dinwiddie era an absolute strong point for this team, and they just let too many get away at BMO Field this year.
Hey, Mike, what were some of the biggest factors in the Argos' disappointing season besides Chad Kelly? Because Nick Arbuckle had a terrific year filling in for him.
I think the one thing that a word that isn't used enough in football is cohesion. And I went through the starting lineup for offensive line this year, and I think the most games they had out of any one group was 4. Like, it was just a constant rotation where somebody was hurt, somebody move over, somebody go into the lineup, somebody played their way out of the lineup, somebody else would come in. He'd have to move here, he'd go back out here. He got hurt. It was one of those on the offensive line, and you can say the same thing in the secondary, where I think they started 5 different guys at Sam linebacker alone. And it was just kind of flip in the secondary. There were some guys who were there. Bratton was there almost the entire season. I think T-Time played basically every game. I think he did start every game at field corner and a couple inside. So for the most part, he was there. But there was a lot of movement in the secondary this year, and that's never a good thing. The two groups that really need cohesion more than any other are the defensive secondary and the offensive line, and they just couldn't get that this year.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Mike. I mean, statistically, like I was looking at, and when you look at a lot of those stats that reflect on the O-line and the secondary, things like sacks allowed and plays of 30 or more yards or pass interference penalties taken, definitely hit the secondary really bad. But if we're going to move to something positive, gonna say one thing about one person who deserves a tremendous amount of credit, someone who was the Argos nominee on special teams for most outstanding player in the league, and I think someone who's got to be a lock-in. We got to give a huge shout out to Lirim Hajrullahu this season.
Lirim could easily be the top special teams player. He obviously got consideration for most valuable Canadian or most outstanding Canadian. And likewise, you could make an argument for most outstanding player, with no disrespect to Nick. That's not a knock on him. It's just a nod at how good Lirim was this year. Set an Argo record for most field goals in a year, tied an Argo record for the most consecutive field goals this year, second most point total by an Argo in one season, set the CFL record for the most 50-yarders in a game or in a season, tied the record for most 50-yarders in a game. I mean, he was just lights out this season. And it wasn't just chip shots. He hit one chip shot against Hamilton, but a 48-yarder at the buzzer, so to speak, against Edmonton for a walk-off. So, I mean, he just had a tremendous season. A couple of the misses this year weren't his fault. One was on a bad exchange, and he still hit the upright on it from 50 plus, I believe, in Hamilton. And then there was one where he was kind of rushed on at the end of the field, at the end of the game, in Ottawa, as they tried to get a few more points just in case it came down to plus minus in terms of if they're in terms of the tiebreaker. So I thought he was just spectacular this year. Zero complaints about Lirim Hajrullahu.
Mike, I also feel that I'm hoping John Haggerty will be back as well. I know he had a few punts blocked this year, but I still think he's a terrific punter as well.
Yeah, he's under contract. I know the net wasn't great, which isn't always on the punter, but in terms of qualifiers, I think he led the CFL again this year, and yet wasn't the All-Star nominee. So he tied the Argo record again. He had an average of 50.3 yards a punt, which is pretty impressive when you realize that 2 were blocked when guys came in clean, and because the ball ran in each case, I believe, 7 yards past the line of scrimmage, those are recorded as punts, not blocked kicks. So those 7-yard punts counted against his average. So, his average was certainly better than 50.3 per punt. And the net got much better when the Argos started getting their special teamers back from injury. You mentioned Hansen earlier, Kassar, Hare Lamana. These are 3 key guys on special teams, and all were injured at the same time this season. So, it was just one of those years. That's all you can chalk that up to, I guess.
I would like to talk about the strengths of this offense with the wide receivers. Are they going to be able to keep all these guys wide receivers next year? Because they have a ton of depth in that position.
Coxie, Herslow, Polk, Mittal are all under contract for next year. So you're starting with a really good base. I think I'm missing somebody else as well, but that's a pretty good base to start with. If you want to start 3 Americans next year, unless somebody comes in and blows you away at camp, it would be Polk and Coxie and Herslow, and that's a pretty good way to start. And then you have Mittal on the other side. Hopefully you get everybody back. I mean, Brissett led the team in receiving this year, and Unger was Ungerer again this year. Both he and Brissett and Mittal, the 3 Canadians, all set personal best for catches and yardage this year. So it was a good year for the Canadian group, and with the Americans already coming back, they're fine at receiver and they're fine at quarterback with all 5 guys under contract.
Do you believe Kelly will be 100% coming into training camp then?
I don't, no idea. That would absolutely be speculation on my part. Okay. So we'll wait and see when they open the doors in Guelph in May. But I would be surprised, but I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
Okay. If Jake Herslow, when the Argos drafted him, did you feel he was going to develop into what he did this year?
Well, he was a draft. He's American, so he came in as a free agent. I think they neglisted him first, but he came in at the end of last year, and he played in the last game of the season because Coxie got hurt, and his first catch was a bomb from Arbuckle for a touchdown. And I was kind of surprised when they dressed him in the Eastern semifinal, and he scored another touchdown against Ottawa in the playoff game. And then when he got an opportunity this year, at one stretch, he had 9 touchdowns in 6 games. So am I surprised by that? Yes. I asked Coach Dinwiddie at one point, I said, what is it about him? Because when you see him, he's not this huge specimen. He's not 6'4". He doesn't run a 4.3. There's nothing really that sticks out, but everybody talks about how competitive he is and just how he's got that dog in him that will not be beaten. And that goes a long way for a guy who has average measurables. He's a 4.4 guy. I mean, he's not slow by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not Benji Franklin fast. He's got great twitch. He's got good hands. I mean, he seems to do everything well, and that's a bonus. And for a quarterback to have that as a security blanket, and every year there's a quarterback here who spends time after practice working with a receiver, and we saw that with Chandler Worthy and McLeod Bethel Thompson when Mac was a backup, and then they got an opportunity. They became very good together, and that was the same thing this year with Nick Arbuckle. And the way that he and Herslow worked so much after practice together last year paid off big time. Just the fact that they know each other so well when they got a chance this year to play.
Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Didn't he also play in camp, if I remember correctly? Didn't he also play a little bit of DB as well at one point?
That I don't. I know Sluka was in as a receiver last year.
Sorry, maybe it was Sluka. Maybe I had him mixed up.
Yeah, Sluka came in last year from Indianapolis, and he played defensive back all the way through college, and then he went to camp with Indianapolis, and it was as a defensive back, and they were running some drills, and in his words, he made a couple of crazy catches in those drills, and he wasn't going to crack their lineup as a defensive back, and they said, you want to take some reps at receiver? So he said, sure. So they brought him in last year as a receiver after he got cut, and then he was going to be in tough again this year as a receiver, but they heard about him as a DB, and they gave the tape over to Iban and Shivers, and they went, yeah, let's give this guy a chance. And as soon as he stepped on the field in Guelph about 2 weeks into camp as a DB, he essentially won the safety job. He was just outstanding in camp and kind of showed what got him the invite to the NFL in the first place.
Mike, before we let you go in a couple of minutes, what would you tell the Argonaut fans who are still kind of leaning on season tickets for 2026, why they should renew their tickets and why they should be optimistic for the 2026 team?
Well, like we've been talking about, it's a pretty good base to start with in terms of this roster. It's not a major rebuild like some other teams have had to undergo in the last couple of years. There are some popular players coming back, and if you buy season tickets, It's for all of the wrong reasons, sadly to say, but I mean, you only have to buy 6 games next year, which is good. You can opt out of the game in Hamilton if you'd like, but man, whatever, I'd love to see the Argo faithful, do a Tiger Town takeover and paint that stadium blue when it's the Argos quote unquote home game in Hamilton. So next year there'll be a new sound system. There'll be the new scoreboards all in place. There'll be a new field. I think there's a new irrigation system. I mean, there's enough stuff going on within the field, and the new pavilion, obviously, in the North Grandstand. I think it's just going to be, a great game day experience. It's going to even get better, and the team's going to be better than 5-13 next year. They're just not going to let that happen again.
Yeah,
Nick, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I really like that the coaching staff. It seems like, for the most part, is going to be together again next year. There's not that sort of ambiguity like you see when a team has a bad record. Like, Dinwiddie clearly has the backs of everybody, and I completely agree. Like, given that he's had one rough year in all these years of success, he absolutely deserves another crack at it, stay as head coach. And being someone who's been to practice so many times this year, like, there's always that really good vibe and energy within the team out on the field, that you get from an outstanding coach like him. And like you said about the renovations, I'm really looking forward to that north end zone, because speaking of Hamilton, one of the things I'm always kind of a little envious of is how they've got that like Stipley north end where people can go and hang out and kind of stand around and watch. The south end isn't really quite like that, and even before in the north end, before the renovations, demolition, it wasn't really quite to that capacity. Well, now we can kind of have something like that, or like Pill Country, where there's that kind of area where people can really hang out and make a more sort of social event of being at the game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The Rum Hut in Winnipeg, another great example where guys and girls just kind of hang, and the Blue Jays have it in center field where they have that area, and hopefully that's a way to get people to cross the road from Liberty Village who live there and come out and just hang and party and have a good time. I mean, football is football, and there are a lot of hardcores who go for the game, but a lot of people just go for the social element as well. And if you can combine the game and the social element and have some fun, and the Argos win, that sounds like a pretty good party to me.
And that's what the Blue Jays have done at the Rogers Center too.
Yep, absolutely.
Mike, before we wrap this up, one of the viewers, his name is George Brown. I interviewed him in the Go Train this year. He's an Argos CFL fan from St. Louis. He's watching. He just wanted to say hello, and he wanted to thank me and Nick for having him on the show this year. And I know a lot of Americans that love the CFL, and they're kind of skeptic about the changes, but I'm going to keep an open mind to it. And we do have a number of fans in the U.S. that like our product.
Every once in a while, I'll host a pregame event, either in BMO Club or West Club, or speak to a group of students down in Tunnel Club. This year, I was in West Club for a pregame event and was talking about, how it's not a big thing in the States, blah, blah, blah. And a guy kind of said, "Hey, I'm here from Chicago." And he had driven from Chicago for one reason, and that was to watch the Argo game. I know back in the day, I don't know how many years ago, this was, I think, during the Milanovich era, because the guy was from Pittsburgh, like Milanovich, but he didn't know him. He just fell in love with the CFL and bought season tickets and would drive up from Pittsburgh, not to every game, but for the majority of games. So, it's a fun game. And I think people who have an affinity for a college, if one of their college stars finds their way to the CFL, that's kind of their gateway drug to the league. And a lot of them just fall in love with the game and will watch it on CBS. And man, it's we've got a lot more American fans than I think the average person realizes. Football fans are football fans, and they just want to see an entertaining product. And Lord knows the CFL is that.
Hey, Mike, before we wrap this up, we're going to put you on the spot here. What is your prediction for this year's 2025 Grey Cup game at Winnipeg's Princess Auto Stadium? And are you going to be there as a representative for the Argos?
I'm going to be there. Not at the game. I'm going to go out for the week. I find it too difficult. Now that I'm working for the team, it's very difficult to go and watch some other team raise the cup. So I'm going to go out for the parties. My stepdaughter lives in Winnipeg, so we're going to go out and make it a big family thing. That had been planned whether the Argos were in the game or not. I just had to book my flight a little later than they did. But yeah, we're going to go out for that. And as far as a prediction, I would be surprised if it's not Montreal and BC and hotter quarterback wins, and that could be either one of them. So I just hope it's a great final that's a good representation of how spectacular the CFL is.
Nick, do you have a final question for Mike before we let him go? Because we have the World Series going on tonight at 8:00.
Yeah, nope, I'm all good. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Mike, and I respect the prediction. I think it'll come down between BC and Saskatchewan, but I think as Argo fans, we can all agree as long as Hamilton doesn't make it to the big game, we're cool with the result.
Okay, let me ask you guys this. My wife and I are going to go. Her sister and her husband are Ticat season ticket holders, and I apologize. I didn't do a good enough job. But we're going to go to the game. Am I safe to wear an Argo jacket?
Yeah, you should be.
Absolutely.
It's not like the old days, Mike, where they threw batteries and other objects at Argo fans. I think the Hamilton fans over the years have mellowed out compared to the 70s and 80s.
That's good.
I wore all my Argo stuff in Hamilton at the Green Day Grey Cup, so I wouldn't worry in Winnipeg.
To a non-Argo game, though?
Yeah.
Winnipeg, Montreal, or sorry, Hamilton,
No,
Montreal?
in Hamilton, yeah, when it's the Montreal-Winnipeg Grey
No,
Cup.
I understand that,
Yeah,
but I'm going to a game the Argos aren't in. Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that's a Grey Cup game, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I
Probably
mean,
will.
maybe Grey Cup's a little different than like some like West Final or whatever, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'd still wear it.
I may wear a helmet.
Hopefully I'll run into you there, Mike. I am applying for a media pass for the Cats game because I would like to cover the East Final. So hopefully I'll be able to run into you there as well. And Rick Zamperin and those guys have been really good to me as well. So being in Guelph, I've been very lucky. But you guys are always my first love. And the Tiger Cats, it's just being a part of the CFL, and I really enjoy doing this. And hopefully Nick and me will be back for our 5th season of this show next year as well.
I hope so. We thank you for doing what you're doing. It's just another outlet for Argo fans to come and hear different opinions and learn a little bit more about the team. So I hope you guys are back next year, and thanks for inviting me today.
Jays or Dodgers? Mike, Jays or Dodgers prediction?
I don't know. I don't know.
I would say Jays 4-3. Jays 4-3 in 10 innings.
I picked the Expos as Steve Rogers strikes out Rick Monday this time.
Good answer.
So, all right, Mike, enjoy the World Series and enjoy the week off. And the Eagles play the Packers. I'm going to have to bug Chris Spelnovich and Sean Bowen on November 10th when the Eagles beat the Packers at Lambeau Field, too.
Did you see the trade?
Yes, they got Alexander from the Ravens and Carter from the Jets. So now we need Myles Garrett, please, Howie, please.
I'm out.
That's my Christmas gift.
Appreciate
All right,
it.
Mike. Thank you so much, Mike. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Mike.
Bye. All right, that was Mike Hogan from TSN 1050, the longtime voice of the Toronto Argonauts and the media communications manager, media communications with the Toronto Argonauts. So I want to say thank you to Mike coming on. He's been on our show a number of times over the years. Nick, thoughts on Mike's appearance?
Yeah, can't have a better ambassador than Toronto Argonauts than that guy. So much time spent, media through like TSN radio prior to covering the Toronto Argonauts in his current role. And of course, as we talked about, like long time experience with the OUA, with U Sports. So somebody really well knowledgeable and insider of all this great information of the league and the sports as a whole. One thing I do want to mention, because he had mentioned the point about Americans getting interested because of certain players. Cal Wither, quarterback from the Laurier Golden Hawks, was on the roster of the Ohio Bobcats. So, yeah, it's funny. It doesn't take hard to look to find guys through their college teams, U.S. experience coming into the Canadian game. And as you saw with guys like Sluka, they come in here, the larger field, and they're able to thrive in it, which is awesome to see.
Yeah. One reason I'm optimistic about the Argos, like you and Mike are, is the ownership's going to be the same, whether you like them or not. John Murphy, Penball Clements, the coaching staff, I think, for the most part, will be back. There's stability with this franchise, and I think stability with the pieces they have, I don't see why they can't compete next year for the East. Look at Hamilton last year. They missed the playoffs, and now they're one game away from the Grey Cup. The Blue Jays last year in baseball finished last, and look what they did this year. So I'm optimistic, and I'm sure you are, Nick. I'm not sure what the record will be next year, but they're not a 5-13 team, and Mike Hogan agreed with me too. They could have easily been a 9 or 10 win team this year if they had made a few more plays at the end of the game. So
Well,
I think there's optimistic for next year.
Well, good comparison. I mean, compare the situation in Toronto versus the system in Ottawa, where it sounds like they basically have to clean house, even though like they kept the GM, but they let go of Bob Dice, and I don't know however many other members of the roster between players and other coaching staff are going to get turned around. Like it's going to be at least a couple months probably before we even hear who the new head coach is going to be, whether it's Rick Campbell coming back, which I really don't like, or who you're gonna talk to plug in as a new head coach. Like this situation in Toronto is significantly better than that, and like I think you saw in a lot of the post game press conferences from guys like Dinwiddie, Pinball, John Murphy, other people involved in the organization, guys like McManus and Arbuckle and whoever. Like they know that this was a bad year, but they also know that they are a young team, but they've got a lot of pieces in place. And, you got to use the adversity of these tight games that you've lost, the 4 or 5 games that you lost in the last 3 minutes, use that as an opportunity to learn and to not make those mistakes now going into 2026.
One of my concerns, there's a lot of positives, but I also hope they address the running back situation too. They didn't have much protection out of the running game this year. The O-line hopefully will be healthy next year. And I agree with Mike. The secondary is where they have to make their biggest changes. Secondary and the running game as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're running back wise, the only guy they lose, I say loosely, and that is a pending free agent, is Garand Gauthier, the fullback, but everybody else is, other than on the practice roster, is under contract for next year. I think though, to Mike's point, it's going to really come down to better offensive line play and better defensive line play, and a lot of it came down to injuries, like you said, like who's going to predict Ryan Hunter's going to get hit by a car while riding a scooter on the way to practice?
That was
like
freak.
Stuff like. Yeah,
Freak.
so like, and that stuff was just detrimental to the O-line this year. Like, I think there was one person who was on the Grey Cup roster last year and 2 players who was on the opening night in Montreal that played that final regular season game for Toronto. So like it's really hard to find consistency when you've got so many different guys going out, and like I said, but the run game wasn't good, but the pass protection wasn't good either. We were by far and away led the league in sacks. I think we had at least 10 more than the second place team. So the O-line was a problem, whether you look at it from the running standpoint or the passing standpoint. If you don't have a good line, you're screwed on both ends.
Do you see any kind of changes to the coaching staff at all? Or do you feel the entire coaching staff will be back? And do you find there should be one defensive coordinator, or do you think the committee is good?
Well, I've said my point before. I'm not really a big fan of the by committee approach. I'd rather have one coordinator. But I don't see any major changes. Wouldn't surprise me if at least one guy gets replaced, but I'm pretty sure that mostly everybody in the system has kind of bought into it to be there for the long haul. So I don't expect any like really dramatic change. As we know, like Ryan Dinwiddie's back next year, and like he's got the confidence of everybody else with him. So I really don't see any major coaching changes next year.
Now, what do you feel, Nick? If you were the general manager of the Toronto Argonauts, what would be your number one priority to fix this team through the draft and free agency? Obviously, Mike couldn't really talk about free agency or the salary cap in the salary cap situations, but you're the general manager. What would the Argos' biggest needs be going into 2026?
Well, I think a lot of it comes, like you look at what John Murphy's done the last couple seasons, along with Vince Magri up until this past year when he left. But a lot of it comes down to U.S. scouting. We've seen it from the Argos over the last couple seasons that at multiple instances you'll have 3 or 4 new guys come in who were cut in camps in the U.S., especially once the NFL gets underway. in terms of Canada scouting, I mean, it's a little bit, in some ways, I guess maybe easier in the fact that you have just the one draft period, which is probably what they'll be spending a lot of time looking at now that the OUA is kind of wrapping up, and the Quebec League and the Western leagues and out east, they're starting to wrap up. So you've got all that kind of data to look on for next year. But I think I don't necessarily think there's going to be a ton of like it's not like the days where we're looking for like one great hope to come in and save the team from disaster, because it's not like the days of the old Argo Bounce to that extent. So I think it's just focusing on your scouting and getting good pieces in, and more importantly, getting people who want to play in Toronto. And that's kind of what I think you'll see. You'll see some of the guys who are pending free agents, I think, play to stick around. Maybe some will get more money, maybe some will get less. Like you kind of wonder with someone like Winnie McManus, who spent a lot of time injured. Maybe he doesn't get the same kind of size contract as he did the last couple of years. But I think if the desire to stay in Toronto outweighs kind of testing the free agent market, and especially when guys are kind of moving into that point where they're getting older in their careers, they have wives and kids, and they don't really want to like uproot their family to suddenly have to move out west somewhere. That's the kind of things that play a lot into the decision making process, right? Like Kenny Lawler's a good example where Ted Govea promised him good, really high quality healthcare for his son. So like things like that do matter. It's not just about the number on the piece of paper that you sign for your contract.
And next year too, let's face it, Hamilton is probably going to be built good for the next couple years. So Hamilton is going to definitely be a contender again next year. Montreal is going to be a contender as well. So the Argos are going to have to really try to get up there with the Alouettes and the Cats. Ottawa, I believe, is going to be in a complete rebuild. So I don't expect Ottawa to do much next year, but you're going against Montreal and Hamilton next year in the East. And I wanted to ask you this, Nick, since this is our last show of the year. Who are some free agents you would like to see the Argos retain for 2026?
Yeah, well, it's challenging. Hamilton's the one that really kind of perplexes me because, as sad as it is that it happened, it's like now you've got to find a replacement for Ted Govea at GM, and it's like, yeah, you've got Orlando Steinauer as like the president of football operations, but like
losing Ted's a huge loss.
Yeah, and I mean, like
Huge.
you look at where the team was before he came in and how much he turned that team around in just 1 year, while probably battling a lot of the cancer that he's had to deal with. Like it's going to be a tremendously difficult position to fill. But yeah, moving on from that, like in terms of the guys, I mean, I think receiver wise, definitely want to get Brissett and Ungerer back. I would think getting two more national players retained would be huge. Their O line is pretty well set. In terms of defense, I think you'd like to see. I'd like to see Anthony Lanier come back. He had a really good year, and I think kind of fell off the radar compared to some other guys. In terms of the linebacking core, it's really tough because like I look at it in between like Kassar, Darkanshel, Hurlman, McManus, and Varga. Like ideally, I'd love to have all five back, but guys like Kassar, Darkanshel, Hurlman, you kind of wonder if maybe they're ready to maybe seek money and move on somewhere else. And then DBs, you got Benji Franklin, Kenneth George, and Brandon Dozier, which again in the same kind of boat. And then lastly, I think like the specialists, you have Adam Guillemette, the long snapper, and Janarian Grant, the return ace. I know sometimes this season there's been questions if Janarian Grant's at full health because he's also getting up there. But I think Guillemotte's definitely someone you want because he's just got that huge tight knit chemistry between him, Lirim Haralau, and John Haggerty.
By the way, I've got an update here. BC and Calgary are in the fourth quarter with 8:41 left. BC 27, Calgary 21. And I did say Calgary could upset them. And I did actually pick Winnipeg to beat Montreal today. So I got that game wrong, and I did pick BC over Calgary, but I said Calgary's going to make a game out of it. And plenty of time left for Calgary. That's what we love about these CFL playoffs, man.
Look,
No matter what
Calgary,
your record is. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Calgary had the ball in the red zone and just incomplete pass in the end zone, but a pass interference for BC leads Calgary to having the ball first and goal on the 1. So
Wow.
it very much looks like Calgary will, if they're able to punch it in, it'll be a
Take
tie.
the lead.
Well,
Take the
27-26, depending on
yeah.
the extra point.
Point, yeah. So that game, hey everybody, please watch the CFL playoffs because no lead is safe. Teams build big leads, and then it's like a basketball game. The last 5 minutes, and and the other game today, Montreal won 42-33. But credit to Winnipeg, they were down 25-6 at half, and they could have kind of like, you know what, let's pack it in, and they actually came back and took the lead there. But Montreal has got a really good team, and Nick, since we're talking about the Alouettes, I know some Cats fans, we're hosting the East Final. We've got the best team in the East. Montreal can't win in Hamilton. And I'm thinking Montreal is very capable of beating the Cats and getting to the Grey Cup, especially with healthy Davis Alexander behind center.
Davis Alexander's never lost a game in the CFL as a starter yet this year. Calgary just punched it in, so my correction, it's 27-27 now with the extra point for Calgary to convert. So if he makes this kick, they'll take the lead. But yeah, I mean, with Montreal, he doinked it off the upright. Didn't make it. Tie game. Wow.
That's a huge, if they end up losing this game by a point, you can go back to that missed extra point.
Oh, 7.5 minutes left. So it's not like it's right at the bell. And so, but yeah, we'll have to see what happens between Montreal and Hamilton. It should be a really fun East Final, though. I'm excited for it.
Do you find it'll be a low scoring game, or do you think it'll be a high scoring game?
Oh, that's hard. Noel Thorpe's the best defensive coordinator in the league. So, I mean, but Bo's been hot and cold sometimes. He'll either have like a really good, like 350, 400 yard game. Well, yeah, 200 of those to Kenny Lawler, or it'll be kind of a zero kind of game. And I got to think that the Alouette defense, the way that they've played in years past, we've seen it ourselves in Toronto, how many times they've played so well defensively in big games. I'm gonna put my faith in the Montreal defense, and I think it's gonna be kind of a lopsided Montreal win in Hamilton.
I think Montreal will win this game, but I think it'll be real close. I think it'll come down to a field goal. So I got Montreal winning this game 33-30, but don't tell the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I'm hoping to be covering the game next week as media. But I do think it'll be a really competitive game. I think it'll come down to a last minute field goal. 33.
Yeah, it's not a good look on the new commissioner when you've proposed all these dumb rule changes, and you had the CFL showing these statistics like scoring being up by I think an average of almost a touchdown over the course of the entire year. You have, I think, more than half the games this year having been decided within the last 3 minutes. Like there's a lot of statistics that unfortunately completely go against any justifications for changing the rules. And really, if we want to look back on it, the big change over the last 5 years that's really changed the scoring in a positive light has simply been narrowing the hash marks to be the same width of the goalpost, matching the NFL field width.
Hey, since we're wrapping up the show, Nick, thoughts on the Guelph Griffins beating Western last week on a missed field goal? Because I know some people are like, that's ridiculous. Western should have gone to overtime. They shouldn't have lost because the guy didn't get the ball out. But the rule was if you don't get the ball out after a missed field goal, it's a single point. So to me, Western, the coaching staff there and that player who was a veteran should have known better. And you got to credit Guelph for getting the win. They knew the rules.
Well, when that happened in an Argos game against Montreal back at the Sky Dome, the Argos had a kickout team. Clearly, I think, and it was a testament on the whole season for Western, especially, getting blown out 60-14 against Laurier. They were not a well-coached team this year like they have been in years past. But to go matter of point, like if we look at how the new set of rules are to be interpreted these next couple of years, that same thing would have been a rouge in the CFL despite the proposed rule change. The ball landed in the field of play. The player fielded it. he would have had to have ran it out or kicked it out, and he did not choose to do that. And it was funny because if you listen to the replay, you've got probably everybody in that Western press box saying, kick it out, kick it out. Oh, why didn't you kick it out or get it out of there? And they didn't do that. But in the new CFL rule set, because it didn't go through the end zone, he fielded it out. That would have been a rouge under the new set of CFL rules as well. So it's just something to think about as we get into this implementation next year.
Okay, Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who was your Argos MVP this year on offense, defense, and special teams? Probably special teams. We're going to say Liam. That's a no-brainer. But offense and defense, who do you pick?
Yeah, I agreed with Liam there on special teams. Offensively, I still got to give it to Nick Arbuckle. I mean, he put the team on his back, and when there was so many questions, he had the MOP from the Grey Cup last year, but there was a ton of questions on would he be actually able to make the Argos competitive, and he absolutely did. I mean, before his injury, he was above Bo, leading the league in passing yards, and I think he probably would have still been, for all the crap that other Argos fans in the stands were giving him during games when things weren't going right. Like, look at what happened once he got injured and how the offense staggered even worse. So it's without question Nick Arbuckle on the offensive side. And then defensively was really hard because, frankly, the defense was last in almost every category. I would probably give it on the defensive line to Chatfield Jr., with the runner-up probably going to Cameron Judge.
I tend to agree with you. I wanted to go with the wide receivers, but I really have to go with you on Arbuckle, and Cameron Judge was pretty good. Chatfield, yeah, I would say Chatfield and Arbuckle and Liam on special teams would be my three choices.
I will say with the receivers that made it really tough was that Coxie had an outstanding first half and then had that really gruesome looking injury and then didn't play in the second half of the year. And because he didn't play the second half of the year, that's how Jake Hirschlow was really able to step up and then kind of fill that spot in the second half of the year. So it's kind of like a tale of two halves. It was first half, I'd say Coxie, and second half Hirschlow. But like you could like morph them into DeMonte Hirschlow or something, like, then maybe then it would be the receiving side.
And don't forget Kevin Mattel. I think he stepped up his game as well. So I think this Argos, this wide receiver core next year with Chad Kelly being 100%, hopefully, this team should be back really good offensively. Just got to fix the offensive line, get everyone healthy on the O-line, and get some kind of running game as well. But I expect the Argos to be good next year. Actually, I expect them to have a really good season, and the draft will be important. But I think this team, it's not like we're going to be, oh my God, this team's going to be bad for the next 4, 5, 6 years. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic, and I really like this bunch of receivers, and hopefully they can keep most of them, Nick. Hey, as we wrap up this show, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Ravi on Twitter X made a point about this too. Thoughts on the Seattle Seahawks actually helping promote the West semifinal between Calgary and BC over in Seattle. And Ravi made a point that he goes, I can't see the Buffalo Bills doing the same for the Toronto Argonauts. I think it's a really nice gesture. That's a really good thing that Seattle's doing, to say, hey, come over to the Vancouver and watch the West semifinals.
To be honest, this is the first I've heard on it. Like, was the tweet just like, hey, go to
TSN.
BC place, or?
No, it was on TSN. One of the TSN guys who cover the BC Lions showed the ad where Seattle was promoting this the West semifinal.
Like in the middle of a game kind of thing.
Just on their website and their social media pages promoting the West. So I think that was great.
I mean, we've seen I think we'll see the Bills kind of do that a little bit more. I mean, we saw them do it even just with the frickin' baseball. They pissed off a bunch of Yankees fans saying that they were supporting the Blue Jays over them. So I think if that's kind of even though technically the Jays aren't an MLSC team, I think that's a sign of what we might see coming forward with the Argos and sort of the MLSE partnership with the Bills coming into this year. Yeah, I mean, the saying, there's no publicity is bad publicity. So if there's that kind of little bit of prompting, maybe we'll see it with someone like the Vikings or something out kind of west there with Winnipeg or Saskatchewan. Not that they really need it like Toronto or Vancouver does, but I think it would be nice to see some sort of, mutual helping the sport, because at the end of the day, like football all across the board needs to do well in order for it to thrive, especially when, like I've mentioned before, like football is under challenge a lot of times, especially in Toronto. You see tackle football being challenged and pushed out in favor of flag football and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Okay, Nick, as we wrap up this show, what are your thoughts on this year's Grey Cup? Who do you see getting to the Grey Cup out of I guess you got Montreal and BC?
I'm going to lean towards Montreal and Saskatchewan. I think Saskatchewan's going to find a way to shut Nathan Rourke down at home, and you're going to have a lot of Rider fans wanting to bring that momentum into Winnipeg, especially now that the Bombers are out. I think you're going to see more resellers probably from Winnipeg area now that they know their team's not in it. It would be a lot of fun, kind of how it was for the Argos in 2020 through 2022. I think you might see a bit of a flood of Rider Nation, which would be fun to see in Winnipeg at Princess Auto Stadium.
What are your thoughts on the Grey Cup game remaining out west until 2027? And do you feel MLSE will eventually go after the game in 2028 at BMO Field, which is 2 years after the soccer tournament?
I really, 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 really hope so. Because I'll tell you, that was giving it to Saskatchewan again was a major disappointment, and I'm just gonna call it like it is towards MLSE, Keith Pelly, the CFL, Stuart Johnson, everybody. You guys talk all this crap about growing the game in Toronto, this partnership and all this other stuff going on to benefit the game in Toronto, and you have the opportunity to put the game on a platter, to put Toronto on a showcase display for all of the CFL and all of pro sports, and you piss away this perfectly good opportunity. So I'm unbelievably disappointed in the decision to give it to Saskatchewan. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not against Rider fans.
Yep.
They're some of the best fans in football, but it's just you keep talking out of both ends that are you trying to improve the quality of the game in Toronto? You're saying all this stuff about partnerships, and then we're losing 3 games to the other side of the freaking country and not getting to host a Grey Cup when we have a brand new renovated stadium. So,
Nick, I totally agree with you on this, Nick. And by the way, the last time the Grey Cup was in the East was Hamilton. Hamilton got it in 21 because they haven't had it since 96. And then the pandemic kind of changed things. They gave it to them in 2023. Now, Toronto with the soccer, okay, that's fine. But there is no reason why they couldn't have bid for the 2027 or 2027 game. I'm hoping the Argos get it in 2027 or 2028. Ottawa is getting their stadium renovated, so I understand they can't really go back to Ottawa right now with their stadium being renovated. Montreal, once they get the big old renovated, apparently it's being renovated, there's no reason why Montreal can't have it, because to me, for this league to be successful, they need to be able to move the Grey Cup to every city in this team. That's why I love the CFL. Every year, every city would get a chance at it, and it seems like now it's just the Western teams only. So I'm hoping once Ottawa Stadium's renovated and Toronto's is going to be done in the next, 6 months, and then Montreal's, because Montreal, when's the last time they hosted a Grey Cup? 2008. So I really feel the league hopefully we'll actually go to Montreal first once they get their big old Olympic Stadium renovated, and then Toronto. I would like to see Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa get a chance to host a Grey Cup game in the next 5 years.
The only thing I hope is that, like, I wonder if it will go to Toronto in 28, simply because I worry that the Ottawa renovations might drag out a bit longer. The timeline's a little bit up in the air. But my other tinfoil hat thing is, with all these field changes, there has, as we kind of talked about earlier in the show with Mike Hogan, there's that speculation on, what does Guelph do? What does McGill do? What does Calgary do? It could very well be the idea that if you put a gun to the head of McGill and Calgary, and it's like, okay, so what if we don't change the field to in our university league to reflect your new desired CFL field? Well, maybe it's a CFL saying Montreal needs a new stadium, Calgary needs a new stadium, and you need it as soon as possible, as in get building a new stadium.
Yes, because McMahon Stadium. No offense, this is
It's a
nothing to do
dump.
with this.
It's a
nothing
dump.
to. It's
It's a
nothing to do
dump.
with. I know it's nothing to do with the Stampeders organization or their fan base, but it's kind of an insult to the East by giving Calgary that Grey Cup game. And I don't know. Let's just hope in the next few years we see the Grey Cup games come back to Ontario, because for this team to go long term, this league to be successful long term, it would be great to have all 9 teams get a chance to host the Grey Cup. And there's something else I was going to say too, Nick, and I should have wrote it down, but I forgot.
Well, like how I look at it too is like you look at McMahon Stadium, joke intended, and compare it to Hamilton, and of course there's just of course bidding has to do with it too, but look at how many times since 1990 McMahon Stadium, Calgary has gone to host the Grey Cup in theirs, but they didn't host another one since '99 in Hamilton, and like they've had all these opportunities where they could have had in Hamilton, but they had to wait all the way till they rebuilt a new stadium at Tim Hortons Field at Hamilton Stadium.
Absolutely. And there's some other stuff too, Nick. We'll have to do an off-season show maybe in a couple of months as well, because there's more that I could bring up too as well. Hey Nick, as we wrap this up, because we got the World Series going on at 8:10 tonight between the Blue Jays and Dodgers, what were some of your highlights from the 2025 Argonauts, or one highlight from the Argo Bounce podcast show this season?
I think definitely the biggest highlight had to have been so like game itself was the Labor Day game, I think, but also the fact that myself, Dallas, Connor, Catherine, Rick, Dan, like we did that walk from BMO Field to Hamilton Stadium for CFL Fans Fight Cancer. That in itself was such a memorable experience, and something really rewarding to know that we raised roughly $5,000 for CFL Fans Fight Cancer. Amazing feeling, and it made every single one of those steps worth it. So for me, that's got to be one of the signature moments of the year for me.
For me, it was the Edmonton game where the Argos won it at the end on the 49-yard field goal by Liam. And also seeing Doug Flutie and Jim Kelly was kind of being at the games this year. Going to every game, whether the Argos won or lost, just being around the fans and the media. So it was kind of nice that way. And I'm hoping next year they can continue to build the fan base and do some more promotions to get people out to these games as well, and try to do what the Blue Jays are doing at the Rogers Center too.
Yeah, one thing we need to look towards for next year is to get more on the field selfies together. I think we had one before one game this year.
Yep.
We need to hook up a little bit more before the games.
And I want to say thank you to Mike Hogan being on our show twice, George Brown being on our show twice, Marty York came on twice, and Adam Rita. As much I want to say, it was great to have Adam Rita on our show, and he talked to us for 90 minutes. So obviously all our guests are great, Hogan, Marty York, George Brown, but it was great to have Adam Rita on, and hopefully we can have him on again next year as well.
Yeah, you can be a fly on the wall and just soak in everything that man has to tell you. One of the most well-connected and historied members of the Toronto Argonauts, phenomenal coach and manager, and so many great stories he shared with us there on our episode.
And finally, Nick, where can our audience follow you on social media, and give us your World Series prediction for tonight?
Yep. So as you guys know, I've been a bit on hiatus from social media recently, but you can always shoot me a DM at NickSmall38 on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Some big news I have to share too. So I will not be going to Grey Cup this year. It was a really difficult decision to be made, but instead of going there, the Wednesday after Grey Cup on the 19th, I'm going to be spending 3 months in Japan. So I will be leaving on the 19th and I will be back December 10th. So in that time, I'm going to be converting my channels a little bit into like a bit of a blog where I'll be sharing kind of everything I get up to in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. A little bit away from the Argo stuff, doing some more of my academic history work. So I hope you'll look forward to some of that when it comes out. And then in terms of the game tonight, I got to think the Jays will find a way to pull it out. And they've pulled a number of sevens out, and today seems like one of those games in Game 7. If they can get out of that hole of one run, it's either going to be 1 run or 7 runs for the Jays. And I think this is going to be the night they're going to light it up and bring home the World Series to Canadian soil.
4-3 Jays in 10 innings, I say. 4-3 in 10 innings.
Let's hope so. As long as the Jays win, that's all that matters, baby.
Well, Nick, we just finished our 4th year of doing the Argo Bounce podcast show. So that concludes the 2025 season, and hopefully we'll be back for a 5th year next year. And training camp will be back at the University of Guelph in May. So it's only, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 months away. 6 more months.
Well,
6
don't
months
forget,
away.
we're gonna probably lose the first 2 months of the year. It'll probably be August, if not even maybe September, until we start to see Argos games at home, like at their real home at BMO Field. So, Guelph, make it out if you can. Love to see it. Love to connect with everybody. CFL's a family, and I know I've made some of my best friends here by being a Toronto Argonauts fan and by being a CFL fan. And I know sometimes we've been critical or talked negatively about the change, but going to that last kind of the future of football game, it still felt like an Argos game. It's not like it felt like something weird or alien. So give it a little bit more optimism that it's finding creative ways to draw fans into the game who otherwise wouldn't be there. The product on the field, the style of football, the things we love about Canadian football will still be there.
Hey, Nick, and hopefully I will see you and your family before Christmas. Maybe once you come back from Japan, hopefully we can run into each other before Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, take care, Chris. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this year. It's been a lot of fun. We'll talk to you in the off season, and as always, guys, go Argos.
Thank you, Nick. Talk to you soon. All right, everybody, that concludes Season 4, Episode 16, and the 2025 edition of the Argo Bounce Podcast show with Nick Small and myself. It's a weekly independent talk show devoted to the CFL's Toronto Argonauts on a weekly basis during the regular season and the playoffs. Unfortunately, there's no playoffs this year for the Argos, and hopefully they can get back as well. And Calgary and BC right now are battling it out at the end of the game. That game is a toss-up right now. Next week, the East semifinals will be Montreal at Hamilton on Saturday, November 8th, and the West semifinals will be the Calgary/BC winner taking on the Saskatchewan winner. And then the Grey Cup will be on Sunday, November 16th at 6 p.m. at Winnipeg's Princess Auto Stadium between the winners of the East and the West. And I'm picking Montreal to come out of the East, and I'm going to go with BC out of the West. But who knows? Maybe Calgary will upset BC tonight and then beat Saskatchewan. So we'll see what happens there as well. I want to say thank you to everyone for watching the Argo Bounce podcast show this year on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, X, and Instagram, and to say thank you to everyone listening on audio platforms, the Argo Bounce Podcast show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and wherever podcasts are available as well. And hopefully next year we'll have a sponsorship for the Argo Bounce Podcast show as well. And if you're a business looking to advertise on here, please email me at cpomay19@gmail.com or DM me on my social media pages as well. As we wrap up this show, guys, the next live with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show is going to take place on Monday, November 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern with special guest J.M. Polzin, a poet, actress, screenwriter, and founder of Breakthrough Films, and her sister, Christina Poulsen. She's a songwriter, entrepreneur, and reality TV star out of Detroit, Michigan. So check out the next Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, Monday, November 3rd at 1 o'clock p.m. with special guests J.M. Poulsen, a poet, actress, and screenwriter, and her sister Christina Poulsen, a songwriter, entrepreneur, and reality show as well. And I'm hoping to get the Small Talk podcast back on. We didn't have a show in October, so I'm hoping to get 1 or 2 Small Talk podcasts going in November as well. So that is it for season 4 of the Argo Bounce podcast show with Nick Small and myself. Again, on behalf of Nick and myself, thank you for watching and listening. And me and Nick will be back in 2026 for season 5 of the Argo Bounce podcast show, maybe by the end of May or June as well. So I will probably have Nick on Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show probably in maybe January or February as well. So that is about it. And Toronto Blue Jays, LA Dodgers, World Series Game 7, winner take all tonight. I am picking the Blue Jays to win 4-3. Addison Barger will get the winning hit and make up for last night's base running blunder at the end of the game where the Dodgers doubled him off. So that's been a terrific series as well. And that is about it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the CFL playoffs, which will resume next weekend in Hamilton and Saskatchewan. And the Grey Cup's only a couple weeks away, and I'm looking forward to the Grey Cup as well. I hope everybody has a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy the Jays-Dodgers game, and we'll see you back here next week for Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. And we'll see you back here in 2026 for Season 5 of the Argo Bounce podcast show with Chris Pomay and Nick Small. Good night, everybody, and as always, go Argos.
Fight the foe, scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top.